Everything is looking terrible right now. As Sarada has been captured, we're seeing multiple different glimpses of the future to come, and none of them really look positive. So the question that we now have is, how is Boruto going to be able to save Sarada? Because the plan never involved Sarada having to deal with not only one, but 3 different opponents, being Code, being Hidari, and also potentially being Jiro too. As the whole idea was for Boruto to go alongside Sarada to that Senju dimension. However, Code ended up taking, let's be honest, kind of a W here, as he ended up noticing exactly what was Boruto's plan. We do know that Code isn't the brightest tool in the box, but Boruto's plan did have a lot of problems, and we have to give Code his credit for being able to find out what was Boruto's plan. But this is the situation we are in right now. Sarada is potentially going to have to face off with 3 different enemies as she is going to the enemy base. And what is Boruto going to be able to do? One thing that we are clearly seeing at this current moment is that Boruto ended up trying to make it in time, but he did so by disobeying Kashin Koji. Here's what I mean. We see that Kashin Koji didn't want Boruto to leave, as if Boruto leaving would cause another situation taking place. Because when Boruto finds out this information, Kashin Koji tells him to listen calmly so that he doesn't end up making a rash decision. And when Boruto ends up leaving, Kashin Koji's expression is as if Boruto made the completely wrong move and they are heading towards an even worse future. If Boruto leaving simply meant that he wasn't going to make it in time, as we saw in the end of the chapter, Boruto did not make it in time. If that was the only issue with Boruto's move, the fact that he couldn't actually do anything about it, if that was the only problem, then Kashin Koji would not have been so worried about the fact that Boruto would end up leaving and disobeying what he told him, because in the end, he knows that Boruto is eventually going to come back. The fact that Kashin Koji was so worried about Boruto's action only tells me that what we're going to see Boruto do next is going to be extremely dangerous and risky. And this is why I believe that it will 100% involve Momoshiki. Momoshiki is going to be the key that allows Boruto to save Sarada. However, Kashin Koji doesn't like that at all, and it is quite clear that it involves what we do end up seeing with Momoshiki in the future. So I don't actually think that we will see Boruto go back to Kashin Koji. I believe we're going to be seeing something completely different. And this also has to deal with the fact of what Kashin Koji saw in the future. And it doesn't have to do with the future that we're currently seeing right now. It has to do with a future that we know about in the past. Because what we ended up learning from Kashin Koji concerning Boruto's Flying Raijin is the fact that it is an imitation of an Otsutsuki ability, being space-time ninjutsu. Kashin Koji tells Boruto that he would eventually come to learn space-time ninjutsu. However, in the meantime, we do see Boruto use the Flying Raijin. So there would have definitely been a future where Boruto ended up using space-time ninjutsu, but because of the current issues that Boruto had with the karma and the fact that Boruto needed some sort of vehicle to make his way to different locations, he ended up learning the Flying Raijin. But it didn't tell us that Boruto would never learn space-time ninjutsu via the karma and the Otsutsuki path. It just told us that at that specific moment in time, that was the manner in which Boruto was going to be able to do so. And that simple fact ends up telling me that we are about to see Boruto reach or learn the ability to truly use space-time ninjutsu. Because Boruto did so in the past by accident, he never really mastered this. And when we look at the specifics regarding the fact that Boruto was able to bring all of them back to the original dimension after the fight versus Ishiki, I think we could see something at play. Because technically, both situations are kind of similar. We have Boruto, who is in a different dimension than the one where he is trying to go to. In the first situation, we have the dimension he brought Ishiki in. And in this situation, we have the dimension where the leaf is. And in both situations, Boruto is trying to go to another dimension that he doesn't have a Flying Raijin marker at exactly. So when we examine these two situations, we see in one that Boruto ended up using the karma. How exactly did the karma allow Boruto to be able to go to the actual dimension he wanted to go to? The simple answer is that we don't necessarily know what it is exactly that he did, because we do know that it was an accident, but we do know in fact that it is possible. And within those possibilities, and the fact that Boruto has access to all of Momoshiki's powers, we could definitely see this take place, where Boruto either leans onto Momoshiki, where Momoshiki is going to be the person who either teaches Boruto what to do, allows him to do that, or Boruto himself will do it by accident. And you guys know what I'm saying. Momoshiki is most likely going to be the person that teaches Boruto to do this. And this may be due to the fact that we end up seeing a Boruto in one of those future panels that he was incredibly upset, almost as if something terrible happened, and he did seem to be in the leaf from my perspective. And looking at that, I do believe that there is a high possibility that this is the scenes that will come to pass. Because when we pay attention to Kashin Koji looking at the future, we see consistent patterns. The things that happen in the same scroll tend to be the ones that happen in a similar timeline, meaning that the scrolls that different events end up happening tend to be the actual sequence where they happen. Where if another event happens in a different layer of scrolls, then it tends not to have happened at the same moment. So the fact that we see Boruto distraught and all that means to me that we are most likely going to be seeing that in the leaf, where Boruto, after being extremely mad due to the fact that it is kind of his fault, Boruto in this situation is not letting just Sarada go down, he is letting his master go down, because who was the person who brought Sasuke to Boruto? That person was Sarada. Sarada sacrificed the time that she could have been spending with her father to go and send Sasuke to Boruto. And it ended up causing Sasuke to be viewed incredibly bad by the village, a traitor a second time. And then we see that during this time, Sasuke doesn't come back to his daughter. Sarada never gets to see Sasuke again, as Sasuke gets turned into a tree. Why? So that Sasuke could protect Boruto. So there's already that level of guilt. But what was the last thing that Sasuke told Boruto? He almost passed the responsibility down of Sarada to Boruto. And with everything that Boruto has been dealing with as a rogue shinobi, carrying on the hate of everybody due to omnipotence, the simple fact that he is literally letting the one thing down that his master entrusted to him, being Sarada, it was his entire plan. Kashin Koji names it as his plan, Boruto names it as his plan, Sarada sees it as Boruto's plan. This is Boruto's fault. So the guilt, everything that Boruto has been dealing with, this could be a cracking point at Boruto's mental state, as everything he could have held it down, everything he held it down, the fact that this is the world's future, his optimism, everything Boruto has been moving forward. But to fail in this way, to let Sarada be captured because of his own naivete, it will definitely affect Boruto's mental state. So I can see him leaning on Momoshiki's powers, or at least the powers that Momoshiki has given him. Momoshiki in the past has been able to take over when Boruto's mental state is changed. We literally saw this in Omnipotence, where Boruto was conflicted with the fact that everybody hated him, his friends believed in this omnipotence lie, and Momoshiki could slowly and maturely take over his body. So what do I think will happen in this case? What I believe will happen is a little bit simplistic to what others may think. I don't think Momoshiki is going to take over like we saw in that future scene that Kashin Koji showed us. I don't think this is the specific moment. However, when we go back to the state where Boruto is distraught, we see him looking down and the karma seems to be appearing on his hand. I do believe that it is Boruto asking Momoshiki for help, to allow him to use this Otsutsuki ability using the karma, the space-time ninjutsu that is associated with him. Boruto is asking him to show him how to really control those space-time powers, because Momoshiki did something similar by simply trying to find somebody's chakra. Momoshiki did so in the past by looking for the Nine-Tails chakra. When he came to the leaf, he did so by searching for that chakra. Since Boruto is an Otsutsuki, he should be able to do the same. And the simple fact that Boruto told us with his plan that he needs Sarada to toss away the flying Raijin markers, because if it's too close to her, he won't be able to tell the difference. It tells us at least that Boruto should be able to figure out how to sense Sarada's chakra, because that's the whole idea of the flying Raijin. If there's chakra interference with the markers, it means that in the first place, the chakra of Sarada that could interfere with Boruto's markers, Boruto should be able to sense that, and using the karma, he should be able to make it his way. So what I do think is going to happen here is going to be an instance where Momoshiki ends up helping Boruto out, because that is basically what the deal entails. And then Boruto will make it to wherever Sarada is. But this still doesn't get Sarada out of problems, as Sarada has to survive long enough for Boruto to make it there. And this is where I believe that in this fight that Sarada will end up having versus Hidari. I hope they don't jump her. I hope they don't jump Sarada, but she is going to tap into all of her Mangekyo Sharingan powers in this particular moment. We're definitely going to be seeing the Susanoo, because that is a defensive ability that will definitely help her. We've seen characters like Madara be able to fight multiple different people utilizing the Susanoo. We do know that Madara was way stronger than all of these people, but let's not deny the fact that the Susanoo is a great defensive ability. Sasuke even refers to the Susanoo as a greater defensive ability than Gaara's Sand, so it's definitely a point to be had here that this is going to help her, especially when she is fighting multiple different people. But I believe that in this fight, we're going to be seeing her showcase the second power too. I think that we have been heavily foreshadowed that this is what she wanted to use against Code, as we do end up seeing her left eye go towards Code. So what exactly is that ability? It could end up being an ability that is used to fight, because if the ability is not used in a way that could help fighting wise, then why exactly would Sarada use it to try and stop Code from whatever he's doing? The fact that Sarada tried to use her left eye lets me know that either it's an ability that would allow her to stall time because she could prevent whatever Code is doing, maybe an ability that helps restrain, but her first eye does the same, maybe potentially even a genjutsu that could potentially paralyze Code in some manner. I do think it's almost an ability that doesn't necessarily have to be offensive, but it could be used in an offensive manner, in a way where Sarada could defend herself using her left eye power, where one is used offensively and the other one is used defensively mainly, but it has offensive powers. Because with the first ability that Sarada has, it's definitely more of an offensive ability. However, it has defensive properties. The fact that it can be used to avoid multiple different sorts of ninjutsu, objects, all of the sorts. We saw that during the Ryu fight. What I believe could take place here is that we have an ability that Sarada has that is primarily defensive, however, it has offensive capabilities. That's a genuine possibility that I could definitely see take place. So the way that I believe that the next chapter is going to dive into is Boruto definitely talking to Momoshiki, where Momoshiki could potentially reveal to him these actual Otsutsuki abilities that all the Otsutsukis know how to utilize, but Boruto, who has been scared of using his karma and scared of his Otsutsuki side, he finally comes to understand at least a certain aspect of it when it comes to the space-time ninjutsu. Do I think the space-time ninjutsu is going to take away from Boruto's flying Raijin? No, not at all. I believe that the flying Raijin is better when Boruto ends up using it in close range fights, like fights versus Jiraiya. I don't think space-time ninjutsu could work in the same way, as you actually have to go through the portal, come back in. It's not instantaneous like the flying Raijin. However, when it comes to longer distances where the flying Raijin could be a little bit harder for Boruto to use as he would have to focus, I do believe that the space-time ninjutsu is going to be important. So Boruto ends up tapping in with Momoshiki. He ends up learning how to use the real space-time ninjutsu that people with the karma or Otsusukis end up using, and he finds his way to go to wherever Sarada has been brought. Now on Sarada's end, we could definitely see some time where they're talking a little bit, but as we did see in the past with Hidari, Hidari is an on-site type of guy. When he saw Sarada in the past, he directly went from the Chidori, didn't even let her catch her guard. No, Hidari is the type of person to press you immediately. So Sarada could end up getting into this fight immediately with Code and Jira, who are potentially talking about whatever Code ended up doing. If Hidari has a problem with it, whatever, we do end up seeing. So the entire point of Sarada and her fight for the beginning of this moment is simply to survive long enough for Boruto to make his way there. And this is why I do believe that it is extremely important to talk about Sarada's potential Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, because it's going to be key in allowing her to survive. And that's why you have to watch this video right here, as that's exactly what I discuss.